It is Monday, January 20th, 2025. This is another playoff edition of Football Today. It is presented to you by Captain Morgan, the official spiced rum of the NFL. You know my dudes, Justin Penik, Bobby Skinner, producer Connor is here as well. See, Bobby, I told you divisional playoff weekend was the best thing we got going. You're always like, "Oh, it's championship weekend."
Just wait until next week. We got Allen Mahomes part 4 next week. Are you out of your mind, Rose?
I know, but still, there was so much drama. Justin, you can be on my side of the boat, can't you?
That was an awesome weekend of football, and I want an even better one next week. So definitely, this past weekend made up for it all. Awesome games, awesome storylines, and man, left hand up. Who are we, the Commanders? Let's roll, baby.
We'll get to them.
Here's where you're right, Rose. Is me and Justin have to watch either the Commanders or Eagles go to the Super Bowl next week. So
so that's the game that we're going to be live for, because it's Sunday, and we're going to be Bobby and I will be in Mobile, Alabama together, and it's the NFC East NFC Championship game next week, and Bobby and I are going to be like, hooray, terrific.
Well, your job is to find your next quarterback. So just you can take your mind off of that with knowing that pressure. We'll jumpstart it with the last game of divisional weekend. It's time for our La Vida Más Fina game of the week. It is brought to you by Corona, and what a game it was up there in Buffalo. Josh Allen and the Bills hold off Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, 27-25 your final. Lamar drove the Ravens all the way down the field. Touchdown with less than 2 minutes to go. Ball right in the belly of Mark Andrews, who drops what would have been the tying 2-point conversion. Buffalo recovers the onside kick, and they are now off to Kansas City for the AFC title game. I felt like, Bobby, we as football fans were a little shortchanged. We almost had the perfect script. Lamar leads Baltimore on an 88-yard, 8-play drive, just cut right through Buffalo's defense and put the ball in Andrews' arms for what would have been a 27-27 game, and then we would have, Josh Allen would have had to have a return of service. So it could have been perfect to have the opportunity to see Lamar do his thing and then Josh Allen do his thing, and Andrews screwed it all up for great football fans everywhere.
Yeah, and I think that's where we forget about. It's like they had a minute and a half left with 2 timeouts. I actually think the Bills would have gotten themselves in field goal range. Mark Andrews, I hate to dumb it down, but you fumble the ball. Tight ends can't fumble the ball. You're just not allowed to. You're just not allowed to fumble the ball, and then you drop a 2-point conversion. That's gonna, that memory is gonna be burned in Ravens fans' brain. No matter how good of a great of player is, that's what he's gonna be remembered by unless they get a Super Bowl with him. That will be Mark Andrews' lasting legacy as a Ravens fan, is losing this game. But the big picture in this is the Bills, man, they know what they are, and they play smart football in this game. And this season as a whole, right? They ran the ball a lot. Josh Allen didn't do a ton, but didn't take sacks, no turnovers. And then the Bills took advantage of every opportunity they had.
All right. Well, I guess we gotta talk about Lamar, right? I guess that's what we have to do. Because this is what I hated, Rose. Remember when I said it's not fair? It's not fair. Well, Penik, why don't you think it's fair that we have to walk out of this game and odds are we're going to have to criticize one of these quarterbacks because they're so damn good? And this is what I was fearful of. Now, Lamar had some mistakes, but Lamar also had some great moments too. Led him to that drive, put the ball in Mark Andrews' belly. That should have tied the game. And, the first thing that I am thinking is that is too much time for Josh Allen, but we would have never known about that outcome since it didn't happen. So I think a lot of things can be true, right? Where I think Lamar Jackson, there's playoff demons. They're there. And now this is one of the first games where he performed really well. And now the supporting cast kind of let him down. But he also made 2 crucial turnovers, and you cannot make those mistakes and turnovers. The Bateman interception, I'm willing to give a little bit of a coin flip since Bateman didn't really know where he was for half the play, but you can't have the fumble. So, Rose, where are you, man? Now, are we full on Lamar Jackson is Peyton Manning with the similar playoff records and whatnot, multiple MVP winners? This sucks. I as a Lamar guy streaming that game yesterday, I was pretty gutted.
Well, I said it on the air, and I got some pushback from people that I wasn't going to put this on Lamar. Just not. First of all, the interception didn't turn into points. So was it a bad play? Yes, but it wasn't like they were driving and he turned it over in the end zone, which is something that we've seen in playoffs past. That's not what I'm going with here. The fumble was horrible. It was horrible. It was wrong from the start, right? It was a bobbled snap. He ran around. He didn't protect the football. Von Miller returned it inside the Ravens 20. So that was a huge problem. That's 7 points. That's on Lamar. Well, guess what? That happened early enough in the game where he still had the ability to rebound. And I think that we just want to look at maybe one or two plays. I'm not going to, the interception happened, but once again, it didn't lead to Buffalo points and it didn't stop a Ravens drive. So interceptions happen. Fine. The fumble, if you say I can't get past that and Baltimore should have just stopped playing after a second quarter fumble, well, I don't know what world you're living in. Go look at what he did and what the Ravens did in the second half of the game. He led 3 scoring drives, including one with less than 3 minutes to go, where he just marched right through, and he primarily did it with his arm. He wasn't doing it with his legs, and he didn't do it with Derrick Henry there. Derrick Henry basically played one drive yesterday, and that's the way it felt. This was all on Lamar, and he almost got them to a tie game. I agree with Bobby. I do think that Josh Allen had one more drive in his pocket. Tyler Bass has been perfect from 50 plus this year. I do think that Buffalo would have won it. I wanted to see it because I think then the narrative changes a bit more. I understand Lamar's past. I get it. I don't think this part adds to his legacy of failure because he was great in the second half and was the biggest reason why they had a chance to tie the game.
It doesn't add to it, but it also doesn't fix the issues with Lamar. Like this is Lamar's best playoff loss, right? And this is a game where he threw a bad interception that he shouldn't have and a terrible fumble that led to 7 points for the other team. Like I think he played better than Josh Allen in a sense in this game, but like Josh Allen's playoff, like when we compare the two, right? And people are like, oh, what about Josh Allen's playoff losses, right? What we don't talk about him. Well, they have the same amount of passing yards per game in their last 4 playoff losses. Josh Allen has 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Lamar has 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Same amount of rushing yards per game. Josh Allen has 3 rushing touchdowns, 0 fumble loss. Lamar 0 and then 3 fumbles loss. So basically the same yards per game, but one has 2 turnovers, the other has 8. One has 10 touchdowns, the other has 4. And Lamar's held to it like he's the MVP. This was only his 5th game with an interception. 2 turnovers in the game. Like that's not the Lamar standard. Is playing good. Like he needed to play great, and I don't think like Mark Andrews let him down. I don't think the rest of the team did. The defense I thought played excellent. Their running backs, I know Derrick Henry didn't have the magical 20 carry games, but their running backs had 22 carries for 134 yards. They had a touchdown drive where 80 yards of it were by running back handoffs, 12 yards by passing. Another field goal drive with only 19 yards passing. So maybe if Lamar didn't have an interception on 2nd and 11 on a 2-play drive or a fumble on 2nd down, Henry would have gotten 4 more carries, or they wouldn't have been in a situation where they need Mark Andrews to catch a 2-point conversion.
But he made every play in the second half. He made every play. Tell me one moment where you were like, God, Lamar really screwed that up. We're talking about a half of football where he wasn't perfect.
I agree.
He was damn near close to it. And I understand what we're talking about big picture with him. And it was the first time all year we had multiple turnovers. This is all stuff that he can't erase and I can't defend. But I just think that it's so easy to just grab onto the fact that, well, Lamar didn't get to the AFC title game. He's not going to get to a Super Bowl. And those are all facts. But I watched that game yesterday and I didn't walk away saying, man, oh man, the Ravens have a little bit of a Lamar playoff problem. I'm sorry. I'm not going to put that on him.
I agree, but at the same time, this was one of Lamar's worst games of the year.
Right. But also the public will.
He's an MVP. He has a different. There's a different standard for Lamar Jackson, for Lamar. And Lamar tells you that himself. I think we all lose our mind trying to, not you guys, but like you see social media and it's basically like, if you criticize Lamar, I will kill you. So afraid of criticizing Lamar. But Lamar would tell, like Lamar said that, right? Like
yes, he did.
Like Lamar said that himself. Like that was one of Lamar's worst games of the year. Now, is his worst game better than 25 other quarterbacks,
Yes.
second best game? Absolutely. But we're talking about Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow, those guys. Like these are legacy moments, right? This is how you become this is a great player who is clutch and does in the playoffs, or a great player who just came short.
Yeah,
I
You
know.
don't have to have the worst game in the world for it to be not up to the Lamar standard.
Go ahead, Penik.
No, and also like what makes, and I'll just use Mahomes as the example because he is the example, right? What makes Mahomes just so magical is that, I was looking on his Pro Football Reference page yesterday. It's like, as of now, he's the all-time leader in yards per game. Still, even though the last 2 years have not been like Patrick Mahomes, he's still the all-time leader in yards per game. So Patrick Mahomes can do it September to December, but he's even more lights out when it gets to January and February, even more than what he is from September to December. And I'm now putting I'm using the phrase Lamar Jackson's playoff demons, and I'm putting that in quotes because now I think we've reached a point where he's had his own playoff performances where it's been the onus has been on him, and now we're reaching the point where the onus is on others and other things that he can't control. And I just get worried when I watch a Baltimore Raven game. And I talked about this on the preview show. I get worried when I watch a Baltimore Ravens game and I see at halftime that the score is 21-10. I get worried about what that game looks like for the Baltimore Ravens. Because it's not that Lamar can't throw the ball. It's not that he can't come from behind. But, Rose, you mentioned it. Justice Hill is on the field. The entirety of a pass-only situation. The threat of anything Derrick Henry leaves when you're in a situation where you have to throw the ball. And that sucks for the Baltimore Ravens. It really does suck. So just so many things change when they're down by 10 points or 2 scores. So many things change. And, yesterday it wasn't necessarily Lamar Jackson making that critical mistake, but it's still the demons of that team and Lamar having to deal with how can we rise above in the postseason. And it's a very, very difficult thing to do.
By the way, Justice Hill was one of the Ravens' better players.
He
on
was.
Sunday.
Yeah, he played
was.
great.
He
But
played
you
great.
understand my point, though.
I
You understand my point.
I totally understand it.
Yeah.
I will say one thing here, and it's not just because of the drop. I think that was Mark Andrews' final game as a Raven.
Isaiah Likely's done so much for them.
Yes, and I think that they always have been the team that will cut you one step early instead of a half step too late, or trade you. I think it could be one of those two things, because I still think that Mark Andrews at 29 years old is a good ball player. But I think with everything, there's one other thing, and maybe this is a bigger media story than anything else, but I don't think so. I heard all the Ravens, and we played this last night on Game Day Final. There were a bunch of Ravens, Lamar at the podium, Isaiah Likely, Marlon Humphrey, a bunch of other players who came to Mark Andrews' defense, as they should have. That's what you do as a team. Didn't point the finger, said Mark Andrews has been as important a player on this team as there's been over the last 6 seasons. That was all great. You know who we didn't hear from was Mark Andrews. And while some people will say, and Bobby and I were discussing this before the show, that, hey, if you're not a quarterback, nobody's going to remember that. You know who will remember that? His teammates. When you fuck up, you have a responsibility, not to the media, not to the fans, to your teammates, to stand in front of your locker and take it, because the Ravens players had to defend his ass, and he was nowhere to be found. Now, if he was sick or if he was injured, that's something totally different. Then I take everything back. If he was okay and just couldn't emotionally handle that, sorry, that's part of being a professional athlete. If your teammates are going to stand there and take bullets for you, you have to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we look back at this game, I will not look back and be like, damn, Lamar's playoff losses stack up. I'll look back and remember Mark Andrews screwing it up. My point, though, is that his best playoff loss is Lamar, Josh Allen's, has had 3 better playoff losses, or, Mahomes hasn't had the playoff losses like that. But when we're comparing him to the greats, like this was one of Lamar, I thought, bottom 5 games of the year.
But isn't that all relative, because he was so exceptional this season?
Exactly. I'm not holding him. Listen, if we're comparing him to any other quarterback, sure. But the name of the game when you're Lamar Jackson is winning Super Bowls.
I get it.
And we need your best performances in the biggest games.
I get it. I get it. It was a fun game to watch, and I just really wanted Andrews to catch the ball just so I could see if Josh Allen was going to get it done in regulation.
Yeah,
That was our game.
My point. I know I keep on wanting to add more to this conversation. My point is not like, oh, this drops Lamar below Matthew Stafford or whatever, fill in the quarterback who's been to the Super Bowl that's not on Lamar's level. It's just, this is we for Lamar to enter that next step of the legacy. We gotta do it. We gotta be better in the playoffs.
All right, that game of the week was brought to you by Corona, and we always try and be a fan that never loses. Here's what we mean around here. Our teams don't win every single night. In fact, as Giants and a Browns fan, they rarely won this season. So even when they lose, we still love the game because whether it's a big-time deep ball or some third or fourth short conversion or just a great tailgate out in the parking lot, there's always something to cheer for in the world of football. And the best beer to pair with some awesome moments, Corona. Corona is all about finding the maximum amount of joy within every moment of the game, win or lose, home or the road. It's the perfect beer to go along with watching football and all the moments that come along with it. So cheers to everybody who loves the game beyond the scoreboard. Corona for the fan who never loses. Get yours at ordercorona.com for 21 and over. Relax responsibly. Corona Extra Beer, imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois. The early game on Sunday, the Philadelphia Eagles end up holding off the Los Angeles Rams in the snow. 28-22 is the final. The Rams, I got to be honest with you, Penik, when they got inside the 20, when they hit the long pass to Puka Nacua for, I think, 37 yards on the sidelines where he made the beautiful catch and then eventually got inside the 20-yard line, did you think they were going in for the game-winning score? Because I did.
And a dropped interception, which is a key part of every Matthew Stafford game-winning drive, is the dropped interception.
Yes, I mean, I'll be honest, Rose and guys. 4.5 minutes to go. We streamed both games yesterday, and 4.5 minutes to go. I was out. I was, all right, on my computer, and we're having like draft conversations. We're doing this, we're doing that. I'm like, all right, we're done. This is done. And then they have that drive. It's like, all right, and then Jalen Hurts takes a bad sack. It's like he can't take a sack, and then their drive's over, and then the big play to Puka, and it's like, all right, well, you're awake again. You're back. I'm gonna start off with this instead of big picture stuff because this, why I was late to recording with you guys is because I was doing a Jalen Carter thing. I cannot believe, with my own two eyes, where they double teamed Jalen Carter like over 75% of the snaps. There's a next-gen stat out there. I can find it if you want. But they double-teamed him for the majority of that game, and Jalen Carter had 6 pressures. 5 of them came when he was left 1v1. So it's like, all right, everybody in the NFL knows you cannot leave this guy 1v1. You just can't. And in 2 of the biggest plays of the game, back-to-back plays, Bo Limmer and Kevin Dotson have miscommunication on who is passing Jalen Carter to who, and who needs to account for him. So it's the 3rd and 2 that he gets the sack, and it's like, all right, well, this is basically over. And then they make the same mistake again. The same play and the same mistake again. Jalen Carter basically is untouched to Matthew Stafford. I couldn't believe that you messed up that bad against a player he's that good. And I think that's what the game kind of came down to. At the end of it, at least.
Yeah, Vic Fangio knows how to create those opportunities for Jalen Carter. Defensively, like Fangio's defense made it where Stafford and the Rams have to play A football nonstop, and I thought they played like C plus B minus football with B plus QB play. Like that's what this game comes down to. Then you have a Kyron Williams and a Matthew Stafford fumble. Those are key plays. They get 6 points off there, and then you can't stop Saquon from breaking off those 2 runs. Like the Eagles were the better team, snow or not, I think in this one. Stafford the better quarterback, but the Eagles were the better team, and they showed it. That defense and that run game won them this game.
And also their ability to stop the Rams on 3rd and short. I really felt early in the game that was something that Sean McVay was really struggling with as a play caller, is that, it wasn't just that the Eagles were stopping them. It was that they were stopping them cold in the backfield, the point where they couldn't even get back to the line of scrimmage. I just felt like a few times the drive stalled for the Rams when they could have tried to get a little bit more momentum. that was something that caught my eye. Saquon had the sort of two games against the Rams unlike we've ever seen in the history of the sport. 534 scrimmage yards is what he had against the Rams. And although LA did a great job for the most part against him in the second half, he bust off a 78-yarder. I mean, guys, he had 4 touchdowns this year of at least 60 yards against the Rams. Nobody in the history of the sport has had 4 60-yard touchdown runs against the same team. And he did it I'm talking about in a career. He did it in a 2-month span. Holy smokes. I mean, I don't know. I forget where he played before this, but
Yeah.
he's had
I
a
forgot
hell
how
of a
many
first.
60-yard runs he had over the last 2 years. It pissing me off. Hey, you want to know a fun fact? The Giants running backs this year, running back room had more rushing yards than last year, but I'm not salty at all. No, credit to them. Like, that offensive line, adding Mekhi Becton at right guard, putting him there, using that strength and size that he has and athleticism, and then you add the finisher, which is Saquon Barkley, right? Where he takes those good runs and turns them into great runs, and that's why they got a damn good chance of going to the Super Bowl a week from, less than a week from now, is because of that. Now we should talk about the Jalen Hurts part of this, which I think is probably the most fascinating situation with if he's injured. Actually, not if he's injured. He is injured. They passed up the tush push for Saquon Barkley handoff. So he is injured, and their passing game, snow or not, has been, if you want to say it's not terrible, fine. It has not been good. If AJ Brown has 3 catches in 2 games, it has not been good.
Well, so my curiosity is this, and Hurts was like, they asked him, "Are you confident you'll play next Sunday?" He said yes. That was Sunday right after the game. We'll see if things stiffen up on him. We'll see how much practice time he gets this week. And for me, the biggest threat that Jalen Hurts is these days is with his legs. It's as a runner, right? He had the longest run of his career yesterday. First score of the game out of the gate, 44 yards. If he doesn't have that, well, then what does this Eagles offense look like? I mean, it's Saquon and it's what else? Because he was holding the ball way too long and even longer than normal yesterday once his mobility was limited.
And that's where the sacks, like you look at like box score and Josh Allen versus Jalen Hurts, and it's like, oh, this is very similar. Then you see that he took 7 sacks, one turned into a 2-pointer, and you see how those sacks developed. That's where you worry. Now, I think the Rams defense is going to be a lot different than what the Commanders do, so I think they may be in a better situation to get some passes off. But yeah, I mean, this has to, no matter how much you want to hide it, like if you're in Philly right now, you are worried about Jalen Hurts, how he's played in these 2 games, and the fact that, like you said, the injury. Because if you take away the rushing ability, well, you had that 44-yard run, and then let's talk about 19 points for the Eagles yesterday, 19 to 28, 6 points off of 2 fumbles on 24 yards of total offense, and then 2 Saquon runs for 150 yards for 13 points. 19 of 28 points where Hurts didn't really do anything, and he added 2 points to the other team.
Well, my game plan is if we're giving the ball to Saquon Barkley 26 times against the Eagles, then we're giving it to him 35 times against the Commanders.
Yeah.
Right?
They can't stop the run. I mean, they had their issues with Jahmyr Gibbs on Saturday night, who's sensational, but yeah, they couldn't stop the run throughout the regular season. I think that's going to be a huge, huge part of the game plan, and just lean on that enormous offensive line to go do its thing. Defensively, the Eagles, listen, they gave up a lot of yards, and they held the Rams to 22 points. I thought they were good. They've been outstanding ever since they came back from the bye week, which I think was week 6. If you factor in the playoffs as well, they are the number 1 team in the NFL in total defense and scoring defense overall. They've been fantastic. You talked earlier, Penik, about Jalen Carter and what he means. The injury to Quinyon Mitchell.
That's huge.
That could be a huge, huge thing, right? Isaiah Rodgers, he picked up the huge fumble that Kyron Williams had, and that was about it, because he reminded me of Toast Patterson of the Giants back in the day. That's a name that probably not even you great Giants fans are familiar with. But we saw the back of his jersey an awful lot. And so that's going to be interesting against Jaden Daniels if the weather's clear and the Washington rookie can do his thing. Anything else on this game before we move on, boys?
No. Let's hit the next one.
I just can't believe how good Saquon Barkley is.
Really?
Even the most honest, or I'll even say even the most delusional Eagles fan could not fully believe that this was going to happen. Like, he's this good.
Only Terrell Davis has had more rushing yards in a single season when you factor in regular season and postseason. He had 2 different seasons, which have been better, but Saquon Barkley has at least one more game to add to that total, if not 2. Saturday night in Motown, end of the road for the number 1 seed Detroit Lions, who turned it over 5 times in a 45-31 loss to Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. We're going to have plenty to unpack with the Lions. I want to give Jaden Daniels his flowers. He didn't just come in to be the quarterback of the Washington Commanders. He came in to redefine the tone of a once proud franchise, which has been caught in the muck. That totally changed when Josh Harris became the new owner and then brought in Adam Peters and then brought in Bob Myers to help him for the old Golden State NBA championship executive to go find the next quarterback. And then they brought in a coach in Dan Quinn, who a lot of people felt like, okay, he's a retread. What's he going to bring? And then they go find the crown jewel of this organization for hopefully the next decade and a half in Jaden Daniels. The thing that impresses me most is that he reminded me of C.J. Stroud from last year with a bazillion times more athleticism. He just is unwavered there in the pocket. When things break down, he's not running around crazy trying to extend a play. He doesn't make every throw, but he makes every great deep throw.
Yeah.
And there's a calmness. There's a sense of no play is too big. I think that's amazing for a guy who hasn't even been in the NFL for 6 months yet.
It's so hard
it's awesome.
It's so hard to defend him because, like you said, he makes the big boy throws down the field. You can't really rush him. So teams kind of sit back in their protection and try and keep him in the pocket, and then they're able to scheme guys open. He takes the quick game stuff when it's there. When you do try and pressure and send after him, he's going to either make the quick throw and have it accurate out on time, or he's going to scramble and get 4 or 5 yards if it's not there. Like, he's just hard. And then if you do get him to a fucking 3rd and 3, Dan Quinn says, suck it. We're going for it on 4th down. They've went for it on 4th down 9 times in 2 playoff games, and they've had 6 conversions. And I think it's been the difference between them winning and losing. If they had Sean McVay as their head coach, who I love, my number 1 coach in the NFL, the Commanders may have been, not won, a single playoff game, let alone be in the NFC Championship game. So they just have that feel. Maybe it has to do with the Lions' defense and stuff being banged up, and the Bucs' defense not being that good. But in 2 games for Jaden Daniels, you have this feel that no matter what you do, they're going to end up converting and getting points. And then when the Lions offense on the other side, pisses down their leg, then, you lose 40, you lose 45-31. I said they were going to need to score 40 points, and they did it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about Washington's offense. Outside of Terry McLaurin, name me one other skill guy where you were like, yeah, I really need that guy on my team. There are pieces where you say, oh, he's nice, he's fine. But, Robinson Jr., solid running back, particularly near the goal line, right? Sniffs it out. Austin Eckler, I thought, played one of his better games of the year. Zach Ertz is still a guy that can get open in the middle of the field. De'Ami Brown has been a different man here in the playoffs. But there's not one guy you point to outside of McLaurin where you're like, boy, I'd love to have him on my team because he would really upgrade it. They all feel like complementary pieces that have been elevated because of an amazing rookie quarterback.
Disagree. I'd love Chris Rodriguez as the Giants' RB2. No. See, I agree with you, where it's like, I look at their defense, and something we talked about in the beginning of the year, I was like, I don't know how good this defense will be, but I do like that Dan Quinn has molded it in his image by getting, blitzing linebackers, Bobby Wagner, Jeremy Chin, getting the backup edges from the Cowboys. But this is the worst roster that Jaden Daniels will probably have in his time as a
It's the
Commander's
scary
quarterback.
thing.
Now again,
It's a scary thing.
this league is different where just because that happens doesn't mean you're going to get back the next year, and injuries happen. See the Lions this year as an example, but this is like the worst the Commanders roster. Roster probably will be with Jaden Daniels because it's just not a good roster. They have some older vets who are key parts of that, but like they'll still be able to add those guys to plug in the holes throughout the remainder of this tenure.
And forget about the skill position players too, because Rose, that's a good point. I've been waiting for the rug to be pulled out underneath the Commanders' offensive line, who last year was one of the worst. Was Sam Howell? Was that last year?
Yes.
Or no?
Yeah.
Oh
Now he took the most sacks ever, but yeah.
Right. It wasn't all the offensive line. Sam Howell is a quarterback that just takes a lot of sacks, but I mean, it takes two to tango in that tandem too, where the offensive line's not perfect. So and they made some upgrades to that offensive line. I think that a lot of people are different, but that's not a perfect offensive line by any stretch. And I'm waiting for like I said, the rug to be just pulled out underneath, and it hasn't been because Jaden Daniels is that dude. He's that good. Cliff Kingsbury doing a nice job of scheming everybody up to get the ball out quick at times too. The screen game has been really, really good throughout the year. The run game has been good. We know that Cliff Kingsbury can always do that. So I feel bad that like this was the game that we talked about third on our preview show. And we kind of just like Jimmy's and Joe's Lions. They're just that good. One of two teams in the NFL that scored over 50% of their drives this year, and it was the Lions and the Commanders. Mm-hmm. And I kind of feel like and I'll put my left hand up, kind of feel like we just glanced over that.
Well,
we're good.
I believe I had my researcher at NFL Network, Tony, look this up. I think they had 16 drives in the wins over Tampa and Detroit when you don't factor in the kneel downs. So 16 drives, and they scored on 11 of them. They turned it over on downs, I believe, on 3. They had 1 punt and 1 missed field goal. You know what you don't hear in that? A turnover. And that's what you need to avoid in order to win back-to-back road games in January. The same cannot be said for the Lions. Goff, terrible game, 3 picks, fumble. They did a trick play where Jameson Williams got picked off in the fourth quarter. Obviously, you live and die by that stuff. Ben Johnson's created all sorts of successful trick plays this year. The Lion, you talk about a gut punch. It's bad enough when you lose a 17-point halftime lead like they did in San Francisco in the NFC title game last year. I wonder if this one is even tougher to swallow because of how everything was lined up. Rookie quarterback coming into your crib, road to New Orleans, goes through Detroit for the first time ever. Your team's playing great. Number 1 scoring team in the league. You feel like you got the defense right based on what happened in Week 18 against Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings. And to not even really have a chance to sniff it in the fourth quarter of a home playoff game, Bobby, that's gut-wrenching for those Lions fans.
To me, this has to hurt way worse because this was it. Last year was awesome. It was fun. They, like you said, they did give up that lead to the Lions, but that wasn't. But we expected the Lions to, have a good year last year. I don't know if we all expected that. I mean, this was a choke performance from Goff. I mean, not only did he have turnovers, they were so consequential. You have a pick 6 where you just sail the ball over your guy's head. Just sailed over your guy's head. Now you just put 7 points on the other team. You have a fumble on 3rd down that took away 3 points for you. You have an interception at the end of the half that took a minimum of 3 points off the board for you. Now you're down 10, and then Jameis. I hate trick plays. The one guy who I allow to do it is Ben Johnson. But Jameson Williams throwing an interception down 10 instead of just running it down their throats like you're able to do drives me nuts. And we got to talk about the Lions' defense in this too. But yeah, regardless of the Lions' defense and how bad they were, we knew the assignment for the Lions was no matter how many points the Commanders put up, you got to put up 1 more. That is the expectation for this offense, and they fell short. You scored 31 points on offense, but they fell well short of what they should have done.
It's a bummer. It's a bummer for Detroit, and you have to wonder, they are going to lose at least one coordinator, if not both, in the offseason. And you wonder how Dan Campbell can replace Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. It's going to be a real challenge, I think, on both sides of the football. God, you just hope that this isn't the high water mark for this team as we see it right now, because they had an incredibly fun year. They're easy to root for. I think Dan Campbell has established something there that we thought we would never see in Detroit. It's just a rough way for them to go out. One more game still to get to. That's the early game on Saturday. But first, I got this word from my man, Justin Penik.
Oh, we got to talk about DraftKings. Football fans. You know it's playoff time, and we've got some exciting games to look forward to. Conference championship we can look forward to. And you can get in on all the playoff action right now with our partners at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, they're offering all new customers $200 in bonus bets instantly after betting just $5 when you use our code football today. Stay in on the action. Use your $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. Do you love to throw live betting? DraftKings has got you covered. Bet live on in-progress games as they happen, making watching the game that much more exciting. And if sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't you worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have a shot to win cash prizes. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use our code football today, all one word. Bet just $5 on any wager. Get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's code football today, only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. You will be glad you did.
Last game was the first game of divisional weekend. The last game we're going to talk about. I know the rest of that didn't sound right. Your two-time defending Super Bowl champion Chiefs, 23. The Houston Texans, 14. Chiefs defense lit up C.J. Stroud, sacked him 8 times. George Karlaftis had 3 of those. So that means that Patrick Mahomes is off to his 7th straight AFC title game. Andy Reid, congratulations on win number 300, just the 4th man in the history of the NFL to do that as well. I have a feeling, Penik, that what the Chiefs have done is lull us to sleep. We watch them and we're like, okay, can we just watch the Chiefs win and just get to the next game? Because that one's much more interesting than whatever Kansas City is doing these days. Do you feel the same?
Yes, but also you got to come to admire how good they are. Like, they're good at what they do. And you have to keep in the back of your mind that if you get to a certain point as a defense, because let's just, it's about their offense, and you want to see Patrick Mahomes be the Patrick Mahomes that he was in 2018, 2019, and 2020, right? If you get to a certain point where you're undisciplined as a defense, they will push the ball down the field. They will try and get Xavier Worthy going. They may give DeAndre Hopkins or even Justin Watson, for crying out loud. He's like a guy that sometimes they like to target deep. So they will do it. I think if they see there's an opportunity, they don't want to just lull you to sleep, but I think they have to, because that's how defenses kind of play them. But you have to respect just how good they are offensively, but then especially defensively with what they're able to do, how they're able to get after the quarterback, and really know what the opponent's strengths or weaknesses are, and then attack it.
I think the biggest thing for the Chiefs, like, we knew that defense is really good. We knew the pass rush was overwhelming, and it's the way Spags comes after. But the other point is we knew the Texans' offensive line was really bad, and that was, I think, the issue in this game. But if we're talking big picture on how they attack the next game and possibly two, here's your big takeaway. You know what was really nice on those 24 days? The old man, Travis Kelce, getting rested up. Because guess what? He had his best game of the year, only a second 100-yard game, 117 yards, and him and Mahomes are on the same page. That touchdown is beautiful. B-E-A, beautiful. Kelce is covered. Mahomes doesn't have him. Kelce finds a hole in the zone, not a tight hole, a big hole, but a tight window throw. Mahomes trusts him, is getting tackled, and throws that ball. That's the type of shit that no other quarterback receiver combo in the NFL does, where they just always know where the other person's going to be and when the ball's going to come out and where they can find weak spots. And that's unguardable. That's unguardable. Now the Chiefs, I think they need to do better. Be better in certain ways. They got to try and get some more explosives. Like Mahomes just missed Hollywood Brown on like a 30-yard touchdown. You're like, man, that was just so easy money for them for years. But my biggest takeaway coming from this game is Travis Kelce. That rest did him well.
Yeah, I mean, he saved it up for his best receiving game of the season. It's interesting because when Mahomes started this run, it was so electrifying. It really was. Like, they gave us also one of the most memorable games of, I think, the 2018 season. It was like a 54-51 Monday nighter against Jared Goff and the Rams. And,
Yeah.
like, the Chiefs, it could take them 2 or 3 weeks to put up 51 points, is what it feels like.
It too.
Yeah, you do. You do miss it. And I think because he came out of the gate so hot. Now, here's the thing. We were talking about this with my buddies at NFL Network. It feels like the Chiefs have morphed into the Patriots a little bit. They have become defense dominant. They still have an amazing quarterback, probably still the best one in the league, who can put together a drive when need be. They're not blowing out teams. Everything is close. They've got a Hall of Fame coach who just knows how to push all the right buttons and has everything dotted and crossed perfectly. I mean, Patrick Mahomes this year, he threw for 177 yards in the win over Houston. That was the 5th time this season he was held under 200 yards. He had only 3 300-yard passing games. We're talking about Patrick Mahomes, who's still in his 20s and he still has plenty of elite football ahead of him. It just feels like this is the way the Chiefs are built right now. I don't know how much of it is because Rashee Rice isn't around. Dude, D-Hop had 1 target Saturday. 1 freaking target. They completed passes to 1 wide receiver. Xavier Worthy was the only wide receiver that caught a pass this weekend.
Yeah, and I think
where it's at.
But here's where I think where you're similar to the Patriots, and it's not just the style of which they win. Like, because you mentioned like the 300 passing yard games for Mahomes this year. I just looked at his 2019 stat book. He did that. He had 5 straight games to start the season with 300 yards, with 2 400 yarders in there, right? He had 4,000 yards that year, and he missed 2 games. But I where they are similar to where people are like, oh, Brady's a system QB right in the beginning, and it's like, no, the system is Brady, right? That if they have Randy Moss, they're gonna take the fucking top off. If they don't, they're gonna get super surgical with Danny Amendola and Julian Edelman. Or we're gonna make Deion Branch the Super Bowl MVP. So this is what they are right now. As someone who is a fan of seeing dynasties and shit like that, I do want them to get back to that explosive ways, right? I want them to bring in their Randy Moss at some point because it's just a little more enjoyable to watch them when they're that. But that's where I think they're similar, Rose, is that the system is the quarterback, and they will deal with the way defenses are playing them, and they will deal with their personnel accordingly, and they'll win fucking games and go to the conference championship every year, just like the Patriots.
Yeah, I think if they had that like a super ultra aggressive mindset that they had 2018, 2019, I don't think they would be where they're at. I don't think they would be as dominant because, you talk all the time, well, the coach and the team needs to adjust to the personnel that they have and to the strengths of the team. This is the strength of what they're doing. That interior offensive line is the strength of what they're doing. They have Joe Thuney playing tackle right now. The strength of their team isn't to drop back 40 times and allow, which Will Anderson Jr. had a hell of a game, which is to allow some of these good edge rushers that you're going to face in the postseason to take advantage of the guard that you have playing tackle. So, this is their strengths. They know their identity, and you kind of have to love it because if they were winning 11 or 10 or 11 games every single year, but Mahomes is throwing the ball so much, I think we might be sitting here actually saying, I think the Chiefs have a sneaky run game, and they may have to actually take it easy a little bit. So I honestly think that's what we would be saying. But, Bobby's whole point of Kelce, too, I had the thought of watching Jason Witten play and seeing how slow he is, that it's actually fast and effective. I think finally Travis Kelce has reached that point in his career where it's like, oh, this guy's slow, that he's fast. 61 yards after the catch out of his 117 yards. Never thought we'd be saying that about Kelce after watching him this year.
Yeah, well, for some reason, there are defenders that don't want to get within 8 yards of him when he catches the ball, which is still amazing to me that Travis Kelce gets that wide open occasionally on big plays. All right, Fun divisional round. We'll look ahead to conference championship week coming up later in the week. We cannot wait. You've got Philly hosting Washington in the early game on Fox, and then the nightcap of Championship Sunday. It'll be Buffalo at Kansas City on CBS. Hello, friends. All right, for my friends Bobby Skinner and Justin Penik and producer Connor as well, I am Chris Rose. We will see you next time here on Football Today, presented to you by Captain Morgan, the official spiced rum of the NFL.